This is a Musclecat Media production.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Baseball Expats after a week or so of more carnage amongst the group. The three boys are all back together again, and apologies for any echo that you might be getting. I'm currently at an Airbnb in Sydney. Look, it's no cabin in the woods, but it'll do for now. Certainly good to see Eric and Spoon back with us. One smiling, one not so much. Eric, we'll start with you. What's happening?
Jays are hot, baby. I mean, I don't know where this came from. Like, they're all of a sudden like looking pretty good over the last week, and now are surging just a half game back of the wild card spot. They're doing it without some key off-season acquisitions in the lineup. Good week for Jays baseball. Can't wait to be back here in 1 week's time when they're 2-5 throughout the week.
And Spoon has been going through it the last week and a half or so. Look, we were meant to do a weekend pickoff episode on Friday. We actually shot it. Spoon was going to have a large rant about the Arizona Diamondbacks and gave one of the most audibly perfect paper scrunches, and it would have been great for the public to hear. Look, our fearless leader, Curtis DuBois, had a good reason for not getting the episode up. His wife was giving birth to their third child, and mama and baby are good. That's the most important. So we did, let the record state that we did do a weekend pickoff. It just didn't make its way to the airwaves. But I guess, Spoon, forever in lore is going to have to live your paper scrunch. I believe your exact words were, the Diamondbacks can't hurt me on an off day. But boy, that was before the weekend.
Yeah, I probably took that bye day for granted because 24 hours later, they were hurting me again. And now my heart just yearns for the off season where, this once great team of mine can sink deeper and deeper into the depths of my memory, and I can focus on other things because, that game, I had a decent crack Saturday night and was very tired and emotionally vulnerable Sunday when they decided to surrender 10 runs without a single out. You think things are bad and they keep finding new ways to get worse. And then the one bright spot all year, Corbin Burns, our owner decides to finally spend money on a pitcher, gives him $200 million. He's got a 2.6 ERA. He's dominating, and his elbow pops. That's pretty much how things are going for me at the moment. Just
so that our listeners know, Spoon's not a fake Diamondbacks fan. You can hear it in his voice, right? For all the people that have questioned anybody's loyalty on this panel as to their team, you can see it in his face. You can hear it in his voice. We're all going through it with you, buddy. I don't think anybody likes to see. No one likes to see that happen to a frontline pitcher, especially one that was meant to get a team like the D-backs over the hump. And just the way that things have gone for that team in the last sort of week and a half to 2 weeks has just completely changed the narrative on where they are and where they're going. So, I think, look, and the D-backs are an impossible team not to like. They're a fun team. I don't think anybody dislikes the Diamondbacks. Maybe a few teams in the NL West that have had to face them over the years, but they're one of those teams that I think a lot of people around the country can get around as a second or third favorite team. And to see sort of what they're having to deal with right now is, I think all of us are feeling a little bit for Diamondbacks fans.
You guys, I think you're still overreacting a little bit too. Like, it's June 1st right now, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, I'm going to be the light of positivity, Spoon. Don't give up hope yet. It's 2-8. This is going to, in the last 10 games, this is going to be your worst stretch of the season. You are playing your worst baseball in May.
I hope so. I hope it's going to be their worst stretch of the season.
I said that a week ago.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Is there wood around here, Eric? Is there something you can knock on? Do it. Do it now for our man Spoon.
Let's take a look at this, though. The team that is 5 games back of a wild card game in the AL right now of a wild card spot are the LA Angels. They're 26-32, and if they want to get to the wild card, they have to leapfrog Boston, Texas, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Toronto, and then one of Houston or Minnesota. And it's the LA Angels, right? Like, I don't think any of us are confident that roster has the ability. Literally 3 weeks ago, we could have sat here and said the Diamondbacks are still a shot at making a run at a World Series. Yes, they're 5 games back of an NL wildcard spot, but all they have to do is leapfrog the Cincinnati Reds. They're half a game behind. They can definitely do that. The Milwaukee Brewers have won 7 in a row and probably overachieving a little bit. They'll tailor off, which means, do you think they can catch the St. Louis Cardinals, who, I'm sorry, Rolsey, I think a lot of people kind of do believe they're overachieving a little bit. Like, you can totally see them still being 33-26 right now and playing 500 ball the rest of the year. And the San Francisco Giants, who are volatile right now. I think this is still very much in touch for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think it's worthy of clicking the panic button, but I'm seeing all these things about needing to sell off players and like almost go back to scratch. I think the players are good there. I think they've had a terrible month. I think it's behind them. I think they need 1 week where they go 5-2, 6-1. All of a sudden next week at this time, they're 3 games back of a wild card spot. And this isn't over yet. I think you got to give it another month.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So last year, this exact date, we were 27-32. And this year, they're 28-31. They're a game better than they were last year. They missed the playoffs by 1 game last year. But
there you go. There's the game.
My doomer argument, and I've got so many. We don't have enough time to get through all my doomer arguments.
You've gotten good at it.
My doomer argument is that the NL is just stronger than it was last year, because I still think there's a team like the Braves saying exactly what we're saying, that they're still in it too. So you're naming the teams ahead of us. I'm just as worried about the teams like the Braves that are kind of in that vicinity. But listen, these are the teams the D-backs play in the month of June. The Braves start a 3-day set. The Reds, the Mariners, Padres, your Blue Jays, the Rockies, the White Sox, and the Fish. Yeah, it's absolutely possible they win 20 games in June and we're talking about something different. But I know Arizona sports. That's all I'm going to say.
That's fair. Well, to be fair, in May, nobody won more than 19 games. Oh, like, it's a very mediocre month, to be honest. There's a lot of teams, like the top teams were like 19-9, 18-9, and then the Jays had like the 5th or 6th best record and they were 16-12, right? Like, if I'm telling you the Jays out of a 30-team league had the 6th best record and they were 16-12, you'd be like, those guys, those Toronto Blue Jays. So the league is mid. All it needs is a bit of a run from one of those teams, and I think they'll be there.
Tough judge if you think 19-9 is a mediocre month, but that's a different conversation, I think. Well, look, we're going to try and tighten up this show format a little bit. We've gotten into a rhythm here on Baseball Expats, and we're going to try and make this a professional show. We've already identified that this is an integrity show, but now we're going to make it a little bit more professional. So from now forward, we'll sort of go through or around the horn from what we've seen sort of around the baseball world in the last week or so. We're going to do a fun segment. We've sort of introduced these from time to time, again, throughout the last couple of months of the podcast, but we're going to do sort of a fun segment in the middle. Today, we've got our second Destiny draft, which we're all excited about. It's really going to lift Spoon's spirits. And then we'll get in through to the tips sort of as normal off the back end of the podcast. So let's get into the Around the Horn. Eric, what have you seen from the last week of baseball that's piqued your interest?
I'd like to build on our little bit of an intro, and we're talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, I think what's piqued my interest is the importance of bullpen. And that's not like a groundbreaking take or whatever. I just think that this month it just keeps solidifying the fact that if you do not have a good bullpen in Major League Baseball, you almost have no chance of doing some damage. So here are some numbers from the month of May. The Cubs had the second best record, half a game behind your St. Louis Cardinals, Rolsey, with an 18-9 record in May. They had a 2.37 ERA from their bullpen. That is the best in the league. In fact, of the teams that had the top 10 records in the month of May, 7 of them had top 10 bullpens in the month of May. Only the Phillies, Yankees, and Dodgers didn't. I think there's been a lot of commentary about how the Phillies need to shore up that back end of the bullpen. The Toronto Blue Jays have the second best bullpen since May 14th, and all of a sudden they're getting hot. They were 16-12 and had a 306 mark in May, and they surged up the standings and are in striking distance. Conversely, Arizona have a 533 mark with their bullpen right now, and Baltimore 529. And both of those teams were sort of looked at as contenders at the start of the year, and they are super disappointing in records right now, right? And I think, what was that mark about? Like, they lost their 10th game of the season where they scored 6 or more runs, and the next closest team is 5. Like, that is that's crazy, right? The Tigers, by the way, are 27-0 when they score 6 runs or more this season. that is enough. Like, that is also insane, right? Like, that is how it should be. You dominate when you go up there. It means their bullpen is shutting things down. So for me, it's just that value of bullpen, and you're seeing it with two teams that should be contenders have fallen off the mark in Arizona and Baltimore, and the Minnesota Twins go on an 11-game winning streak with the second best bullpen in the month of May. The Chicago Cubs go 18-9 with a 237 mark, and in the last 2 weeks, here come the Toronto Blue Jays. They're not hitting very well, although last week they have been, but somehow they're winning some games, and it's because the bullpen is doing its job. So yeah, look for the Dodgers, Yankees, and Phillies to try to address that. But yeah, I guess that's just my big takeaway. It's just been evident this last week in the month. Bullpen, baby. You got to have a good bullpen.
Can I ask you boys? I've never had the privilege, I guess, of supporting a team that has a good bullpen. If you've ever had that experience, can you tell me what it feels like?
Well, I mean, I can also speak from the going against a good bullpen. Like, think back to that Toronto Blue Jays run in 2015 and 16 when they went to back-to-back ALCSs. The Kansas City Royals went on a run to 2 straight World Series and won one off the backs of having a great bullpen, right? Like, just having 3 guys that they could run out in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And, you know, I've been around some championship teams in the Australian Baseball League that had a good bullpen. And it's an awesome feeling because it just shortens games, right? Like, you're in the clubhouse, you're with a team, and you're like, oh my goodness, if we have a lead after 6 innings, we're not losing. Like, all we need to do is stay tied or have the lead after 6 innings, and then you're good. Like, that is, it's a pretty cool feeling, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, that's what it's been like. Rolsey's obviously been around some championship winning teams, but yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like, my friend, is just having a feeling that of invincibility, I suppose. But yeah, those Kansas City Royals bullpens were dominant, right? Like, it was a fun one to watch. 3 guys in a row. They just, couldn't stop it. And the Dodgers bullpen that year, Kenley Jensen was terrible. And yeah.
See, yeah, my memory of good bullpens is kind of the same. Like, the Cardinals have had some good ones in the past. I think as a fan, when you have a good bullpen, you're still cynical because the bullpen can't be bulletproof, right? So there's always that guy in the pen that when they come out, even if they've got a 2-dot in 37 appearances, you're still like, oh no, here comes so-and-so. And then whenever he gives up a base hit, you're just, your levels of cynicism just change. I think you're still kind of cynical with a bullpen, but I'm kind of the same because you remember like the back end of the bullpen that those Astros teams had in the late 2000s, like you get to the 7th inning and you've got to face Brad Lidge, and then you get to the 8th, you got to face Octavio Dotel, and then you get to the 9th and you got to face Billy Wagner throwing 8,000 miles an hour. So like talking about like dominant bullpens for the Cardinals at all, and because the Astros are in the NL Central then before they moved to the AL West. So my sort of, whenever I hear dominant back end of a game, get to the 7th inning and it's over, my mind always goes to those dominant Astros bullpens in the early 2000s.
For me, it's remembering that tried, tested, and true formula. Like I said, the Royals, it was Herrera to Davis to Holland, 7, 8, 9. Like, that was elite. And then I'm just looking this up now. I was trying to find it. But the bullpen for the Kansas City Royals in 2014-15, in 30 playoff games, they had a 2.62 ERA, allowing just 1 homer in 11 World Series games. Like, that is unbelievable, right? It just shortens games. It's a good feeling. And when you don't have a good bullpen, you sit there with a 5-run lead in the 7th and a base runner gets on and you're just like, ugh, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah. And that can happen against the Rockies or the Pirates, even on your home diamond. I've seen that twice in the last 2 weeks.
And like you've said, everybody in the Major League Baseball is at least a 4A team. So, you know, they can put up numbers in a hurry. 29 MLB teams and 1 4A team. Like, there's players of that caliber that can put up some numbers.
Spoon was no teeth smiling the entire time you were talking about what it's like to have a good bullpen. He's still doing it. It's you can just see the pain all over Spoon's face. So now that it made you sit through that, talking about how important bullpens are, Spoon, what sort of has caught your eye in the last week?
I'm looking for a ray of positivity, something to get excited about. And typically when I need to do that, usually it's because the D-backs have let me down. And when I do that, and when I go on these journeys, I like to go to an exotic land called the American League, where no one that I typically know can hurt me to the same extent. So I get the passport out and I go swap over to another league. If you know the answer to the question, either of you, then maybe don't answer it. If you don't know the answer to this question, do you guys want to guess how many home runs Cal Raleigh currently has for the Mariners?
This was on my weird stats. This is outrageous number for a catcher too. I do know the answer to it.
I was having a conversation with somebody about it over the weekend. So yeah, I'm across this as well.
Yeah. So he's on 23 right now, which would put him on pace to break Judge's record by 1 if he was to continue at that pace. He's a switch hitting catcher that has the most effortless power. We talked a few weeks ago, Rolsey, about when are you like too soon on record watch as far as a streak point of view. At what point are we on Aaron Judge record watch with Cal Raleigh if we're a third of the way through the season and he's actually a third of the way through that record? Maybe it's a little bit early, but it's the kind of thing I think we can keep an eye on and have a little bit of fun with.
Well, I always bring some weird stats to the pod, right? And that was actually on Mind Spoon, was that there are only 2 players in American League history who have more than 23 home runs or whatever it is, or 22 home runs before the start of June. That's what it is. And Cal Raleigh and Ken Griffey Jr. are the only players to have 22 or more home runs at the end of May. It is like crazy. Like he's literally in that company. That was one of my weird stats I wanted to bring up. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and there's been like very little talk about it, right? Like if Ohtani had 23 home runs right now, or Aaron Judge had 23 home runs right now, we would be talking about it. Well, maybe not us because we don't like those teams, but every other corner of baseball media would be going off on it. Maybe we just need to shine the light ourselves on Cal Raleigh and the Seattle Mariners.
We are talking about Shohei Ohtani. You are 100% right. Like, it's Shohei Ohtani news on my feed every time he hits a home run. And he's having a ridiculous season. He's hit 22 home runs, right? Like, Raleigh has passed Ohtani for the home run lead, and everybody is, having a bit of a, they're lighting little candles with Shohei Ohtani's photos up there and creating some cults to follow the great lord that is Shohei, and as they should. But, Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, maybe should be right on that train.
Dumpy, baby. Let's go.
Well, the reason why I came across sort of my train of thought is I was having a conversation with a guy over the weekend that if you just backed, and maybe we can talk about this when we get to the tips, if you just backed Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge, and Shohei Ohtani each to homer on the same day, they did that over the weekend, all 3 of them to homer on the same day, and you hit it probably 2 or 3 times during the season, you're probably going to make your money back. And with the amount of home runs that each of those 3 guys have hit, it seems like maybe a play that you could just, obviously all 3 teams need to be playing on the same day, but it seems like the way that the pace is for all 3 of those guys at the moment, it's almost a bet for nothing.
That's a great pick, is every day just put a little bit of money on the 3
just trio them together.
Well, it's most dangerous avalanche.
Yeah, just double up every day until they hit. For mine, I'm going to stray a little bit away from Major League Baseball and talk a little bit of college baseball. My Arkansas Razorbacks, I feel like, are probably in the best spot that they have been in ever to win a College World Series. So this is, for those that don't know, the University of Arkansas is probably the best, I would say, baseball program in NCAA baseball to have never won a College World Series. Listen to this. 37 NCAA appearances. They've been to the College World Series 11 times. They finished runner-up twice, 1979 and 2018. 2018, they led by 2 runs in the 9th inning of Game 2, and they had a 1-0 lead and ended up losing Game 2 and then lost Game 3 to Oregon State. They've been to a regional 6 consecutive seasons. They're now into the Super Regional after an incredible weekend this weekend. And probably the most important thing is that Arkansas went in as the number 3 overall seed. The 1 and 2 seeds have been knocked out. Vanderbilt and Texas have been eliminated. It's a team that I think has the Golden Spikes Award winner in Wahiwa Aloy. We talked a little bit about him with Jonathan Mayo, potentially that he's like a fringe first-round guy. Shout out Brent Iredale, an Australian kid who's playing third base for an SEC team potentially that's now going to go to a Super Regional. So I just sort of wanted to give my flowers to an Arkansas team. And look, Dave Van Horn is a guy that has been around for so long, started in Nebraska. We should have talked about this with Tyler Mullen last week. Big Dave Van Horn guy. But this is a team I think that has the pitching, certainly has the offense. I mean, Ryder Helfrich, who was the regional MVP this past week in Arkansas, crushed 3 home runs in 2 days. So it's a team that's just playing with a lot of spirit and a lot of passion. And most importantly, I'm heading back to the United States next week. So if Arkansas does win their Super Regional in Fayetteville next week, it means the College World Series is the following weekend. Little Rock to Omaha is a pretty cheap flight, so there's a potential that I might be heading to Nebraska in a couple of weeks. But I love this time of year because you don't really get to watch a lot of college baseball during the year. You can do. Disney Plus has made it actually quite accessible to be able to watch college baseball, but it's just something about this time of year whenever you get to those playoff environments. You know, it's kind of spring is springing. It's coming into summer in the U.S. The baseball season is far enough along in Major League Baseball to where the newness of it is worn off. So I really enjoy this time of year. And when Arkansas is playing as well as they are, it's even more fun as an Arkansas.
2 things, Rolsey. One, that Texas upset's a big deal. Like, they were looking good all year. But you can thank fellow Australian Connor Miles from UTSA, the University of Texas, San Antonio, for helping to knock off the Texas Longhorns, which is a huge thing. And you're right, puts Arkansas in a good spot. And you should be feeling good about them. But this College World Series looks way more volatile than it ever has before, because I have to draw you back to 10 days ago. Can you tell me the record of Arkansas in the SEC tournament?
0-1.
0-1. They lost their first game, right? Like, this has been probably as close as a college year from what I'm reading and seeing and following a little bit, as a lot of other people have kind of seen in some time, right? Like, it is just all over the shop, which is pretty exciting. It should be a good Super Regionals.
Yeah, there's still something special about the ping that you hear in the bat as well. I mean, I know they've obviously dumbed down those bats. We were having the same conversation about whether or not they should go to wood potentially at some point in college baseball. I don't know that they will, but I just think that there's still something special about hearing that ping this time of year. But anyways, yeah, it's obviously I was watching over the weekend. They were able to beat Creighton overnight. It was a late game, actually. It was like 3:00 here by the time that game finished up. So it was really, really late into the night in Fayetteville. But full stadium there at Baum Walker, and it'll be the same for the Super Regional next week. So woo pig suey. All right, our next segment we'll call sort of the out of left field. Each week we'll come up with some various topics and things we can chat about, just to have a little bit of a quirky one. One that I want to do is a segment called Did He Pitch?, where I just name random position players and get Spoon and Eric to guess whether or not they pitched. Maybe we'll do that in the next couple of weeks. But Eric presented something to us in the group chat earlier this week, which I thought was pretty interesting. And it was a Hall of Good. And there were some very specific requirements for individuals to get into the Hall of Good. So what we thought we would do is each choose our first ballot, unanimous Hall of Good inductee. And Eric, do you want to maybe explain to the good people what the stipulations are for picking a member of the Hall of Good?
Yeah, Hall of Good player must be very good at baseball. That is the number one criteria. However, they cannot be great. That is the firm rule. To get into the Hall of Good, you cannot be Hall of Fame or a great player. You have to be a firmly very good player and probably do it for a long time. So some rule stipulations around it is that you cannot have won a Cy Young Award or an MVP, and you cannot be in the Hall of Fame. Like, those are 2 rules. However, you just need to be in that level firmly, sort of in that good to very good below. So I've actually got I've got a couple here. Maybe I'll present. I would like to do this. I would like to present 3 nominees for the Hall of Good, and I would like you to tell me who you are voting. You guys each get to decide who gets my pick to go as the inaugural inductee in the Hall of Good. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
all right. Let's start things off. I'm going to start one with, we have a link here, by the way, to both yours and mine teams here, Spoon. So I'm going to start on the Toronto Blue Jays with Jose Bautista. Bautista obviously had that iconic bat flip moment, was the face of the Jays when they turned it around. He led the league in homers twice, hit 40 homers or more 2 times. He hit 54 home runs once, led the league in walks twice. He had 6 straight all-star seasons. He had that iconic bat flip, was in the top 4 in MVP voting twice, in the top 10 4 times, and had a big stretch of 6 years. He was a very good baseball player, but he was not great. Case number 2, Bobby Abreu. Now, this guy played 18 seasons in major leagues. He had a 60 career WAR, and he hit 40 home runs 5 times. He was on some great teams that made some deep runs, but this guy is not a Hall of Famer, but a 60 WAR. Are you kidding me? What an unbelievable career. And my final nominee for the Hall of Good is Luis Gonzalez. This man had 2,591 hits in his career that spanned 19 years with a 50.1 WAR. He hit 354 homers, 1,439 RBIs. In 1999, he hit 336. In 2001, he hit 325 with 57 homers, an OPS of 117. Over 1,100 OPS. 5 seasons with an average above 300. 5-time All-Star, World Series champion, but not in the Hall of Fame. Has had the opportunity to be in the Hall of Fame and probably won't be in the Hall of Fame. So those are my 3 first nominees for the Hall of Good. Boys, who are you taking from that list? One person, please, of my nominees for the Hall of Good.
I think I've got to go Joey Bats. I do have just 2 quick thoughts on that. First, I've just had a look at the stats as you were kind of reading them out. It's insane. He finished 3rd in the MVP that season. He had a 106 OPS, and I had to go and look why. Kobe Ellsbury has much inferior numbers in every single sense, finished 2nd. I don't really understand that. But Justin Verlander had a 2.4 ERA and 250 strikeouts, so that'll probably do it. I understand that. Second point on Joey Bats, is this guy juicing? Like, you know, we talk about Luis Gonzalez probably was juicing. Joey Bats was doing nothing till 29 years old. He was bouncing around all sorts of teams, like on 2-way contracts, a few stints in the minor leagues, and he just hits 54 home runs in 2010.
Out of nowhere.
And then he hits 43 the year after that, has some high 20s, another 40, and then almost as quickly as it happened, it was gone. Like, this is like looking at 2 different players' resumes stitched together into one and calling it one player's career. But, you know, he never got caught, and this is an integrity pod, so I don't see why he'd be ineligible. And this is your haul, and maybe juicing and not getting caught is all well and good in that as well. So Joey Bats gets my vote.
He was also, keep in mind, he was a Rule 5 pickup from the Toronto Blue Jays before that 54 home run season. And then I remember that so clearly. I was going to school, to French school in Trois-Rivières, which is funny enough. This place is called 3 Rivers. Funny enough, Trois-Rivières only has 2 rivers. Go figure. Anyways, I so clearly remember watching him in May, and he hit like his 17th home run. And like all my buddies were like, who is this guy? Like, what's happening? He was a weird character. I like it. Spoon, your vote is for Joey Bats. Who's your vote for? Of those 3, you're on mute, buddy.
Like I said, this was going to be a professional episode. I guess just because Spoon touched on Luis Gonzalez and Joey Bats, I'll give Bobby Abreu his flowers. Just like his ability to play every game in every season is what made Bobby Abreu so good. Like, he was very rarely not on the field. I think he had a couple seasons there where he fought injury, like sort of around the. Well, actually, it was really just, well, no, not really. I mean, this is a guy that when you go up and down, like he played 150 games in every season from 1998 through to 2010. Like, that's absurd. And
how many plate appearances?
He received an MVP vote in 7 different seasons. And I think probably one thing that maybe worked against him is, like, obviously he had all those good years in Philadelphia. And then he left Philly maybe in his prime. Bounced around with the Yankees, went to the Angels, finished his career with the Dodgers, and then had a tiny stint with the Mets. If he stays with Philly throughout his entire career, the conversation around Bobby Abreu is probably maybe slightly different. But I think his ability to stay on the field and just put up consistent numbers year after year after year, he was Mr. Consistent, right? And probably just the fact that sort of in the midway point of his career and later on, he bounced around from team to team and maybe just sort of got lost a little bit in some people's mind. But his numbers hold up when you go and look at Bobby Abreu. It's a career certainly worth first ballot Hall of Good, I think.
I'm going to second, though, the Joey Bats for Hall of Good, only because it's what prompted this conversation, because a couple days ago he was inducted in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, and that prompted the discussion being like, no, he's not a Canadian Sports Hall of Famer, maybe cultural impact, but that prompted a discussion with a few friends being like, who's in your Hall of Good? Because we started doing this with hockey as well. But there were specific rules, like you have to have over a 0.9 point per game, but below 1, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, Joey Bats is my Hall of Good second in vote. By the way, Rolsey, Bobby Abreu, 10,000 plate appearances in Major League Baseball.
Good grief. Well, look, I've got a first ballot lock Hall of Gooder. But Spoon, what direction are you going?
I think looking at the three names Eric's just put forward, I mean, Joey Bats, we talked off air a little bit. Joey Bats and Madison Bumgarner have this like really weird kind of overlap as far as real short peak, but insanely high peak and a lot of heroics in the postseason. And just on that, Bautista's got 36.8 WAR, Madison Bumgarner 37.2. It's almost identical, really, what they did in such a short amount of time. It wasn't going to be where I was going to go with it, though. But looking at the WAR numbers, and Abreu 60.2, and what else do we have? Lugo 52. So, like, maybe you guys have good as great, and I have good as, like, above average, because mine's just going to be a little less of a legend, but maybe a little less of a household name. I like the freight train, David Peralta, and I like him because I get to look back at a time when the D-backs were expected to be bad and there were no expectations, and that there were simpler times in my life, but he still brought joy as a good player on a team that was bad. It reminds me a lot of watching Devin Booker back when the Suns won 19 games, and it was okay that we were terrible and Devin Booker was doing good things. David Peralta was that man for me. So a little bit nostalgic, a little bit of a sentimental kind of vote. David Peralta had 17 WAR, 28 batting average over his career, 125 home runs. He led all of baseball in triples in 2021, and he led the National League in triples in 2015. He did win 1 Silver Slugger and 1 Golden Glove, so no major award, but he was never an All-Star. He was never got any MVP votes, and for me, those are signs of greatness. This was just a guy who was good. He played pretty good defense in the outfield. He had speed probably that didn't necessarily correlate with his frame, but he was a hard worker, and that's where those triples came from. I do have to knock him down slightly because he had the chance to retire as a one team player. I know the D-backs didn't bring him back, but not only did he go and play for other teams, he played for the Dodgers and then the Padres. But Integrity Pod, I'm not going to let my personal view on that, absolute betrayal cost him his seat here. I'm going to put him on the ballot. Whether he gets in or not, that's okay. But I like you, Freight Train, and I won't forget what you did for my team.
Look, I'm not going to knock you for a sentimental pick. I think it's beautiful. On a day where you're so disgusted at the Arizona Diamondbacks, you're still able to pull something from the past that makes you happy. I mean, I guess in some ways, what held him back is what made Bobby Abreu so great, because there were some seasons where he just couldn't stay on the field. Like, you look at that 2020, what was it? It was the 2016 season. After coming into the league and being so good, he played 48 games. Maybe one of those guys that COVID potentially hurt. We talk about like COVID having a lot of effect on some of those fringe guys that were good, that could have been great, and didn't take that next step. And, in some ways that season was kind of a career changer for a lot of different fringe guys. So in some ways, his inability to stay on the field and have that bit of longevity at times, but I guess particularly early in his career, he more so battled it. Yeah. And he still battled injury whenever he went to Tampa Bay. Right. So I think in some ways it was like, if he's on the field for 150 plus games in 7 or 8 straight seasons, we're probably having a very different conversation.
And if he maybe debuts his rookie season at 23 instead of 26 as well, that tail off doesn't quite happen as quickly.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to go in a different direction again because Eric gave a very tight stipulation, and I just decided that I was going to find the best guy possible. I'm going Kenny Lofton, and I think it's like once you look at Kenny Lofton's numbers, it kind of becomes pretty obvious. Here's a guy who hit 300 in his career, over 620 stolen bases, a WAR just short of 70. I mean, he was one of the most electric leadoff hitters and base stealers of all time, right? And somehow he only got 4.5% of the Hall of Fame vote his first year on the ballot and then dropped off. 6-time All-Star, 4 Gold Gloves, never an MVP finalist. He's the type of guy, and it's interesting, right? Because where his WAR is at 70 has him kind of in the conversation as being a Hall of Famer, but it's almost like if his name were different, maybe he'd be there. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's sort of like Kenny Lofton just became a guy who was like Mr. Reliable, but because he was Kenny Lofton, it wasn't like people viewed him as elite. But when you look at his numbers, like he was elite for a full decade. And like the prototype of like that 90s menace on the base paths. Like when you think about like the Ricky Henderson type and how like that type of player evolved, like Kenny Lofton is very much in that mold. And then when you look at his career numbers, it's kind of wild that he just almost wasn't even considered a Hall of Famer, like 4.5% and then dropping off in his first year on the ballot. It's kind of crazy, right? So I think this guy 100% belongs in the Hall of Good. He's probably the poster child for the Hall of Good in my mind.
I love that pick because if I told you right now that I'm going to give you a player for 83 games in the season, and in that time, he's going to have an OPS of 812, an average of 303, and steal you 23 bases in those 83 games, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds productive. And then I'll tell you it's Kenny Lofton and he's 40. Like, you know, that's what he did with the with Cleveland, right? He stole over 50 bases 6 times. He went 66, 70, 60, 54, and 75 from his age 25, his rookie season, to 29. So he's kind of a late debuter as well. Imagine if he played another 3 seasons when he was stealing those kind of bases. So I think that's a great Hall of Good pick.
Those stolen base numbers, all I can do is think, like, can Corbin Carroll just lift? Sorry, guys. I'm in a hole.
And like, just to put a bow on it, I think the reason why he is probably in that Hall of Good category and not, to use Spoon's words, Hall of Great, is because of the fact that he was like, he's not one of these guys that got 40% of the vote and then just kind of slowly trickled off the ballot. It's like he was immediately shunned as like, no, this guy's not a Hall of Famer by the baseball writers in general. So it's like they almost, before he even went into the voting process, they just put him in that category. Like, this guy was a good player, not a great player, so we're not even going to consider him as a legendary player. You know what I mean? But when you go back and you look at his numbers and you think about his impact, it's just kind of crazy to think about like how some guys just kind of get lost in the ether, even though their careers stack up against guys that are in the Hall of Fame.
I do love how he had a decade, though, with Cleveland and like absolute like trajectory of Hall of Fame numbers with Cleveland. And then he just went on a tour for 10 years or 7, 8 years. He played for a year at the Dodgers, then Atlanta, then Philadelphia, then Chicago, then Pittsburgh, then Texas, then the Yankees, then the Cubs, then the Giants, and then Houston, and never more than a season with any of those teams. So he was just like a loyal company guy for a decade. And then it was just like, give me a jersey, baby. Let's roll.
Well, that's ultimately what sort of happened with Bobby Abreu, too. We talked about, right? Like, if he stays a Philly for his entire career, it's probably a much different conversation. Just quickly, 2 other guys that I had to look at. Tim Salmon, I think, is probably one maybe more along that Johnny Peralta sort of ilk. 40 WAR, but I mean, he would, like, there was a time when Tim Salmon was like the guy. Like, obviously when they won the World Series in 2002, he was unbelievable. But like me as a kid in the early 2000s playing MVP baseball 2004, like Tim Salmon was the guy. Like, every home run derby that you would play it as Tim Salmon. And you say his name and you just kind of think about the 2002 World Series. Like, you can see the 2002 World Series whenever you say Tim Salmon's name. Another one that was like a sneaky guy as a pitcher was a guy like Mark Langston, who like he was like your prototypical like 90s mustache energy pitcher, right? And you just kind of always like I remember him pitching, like he pitched for the Mariners, the Angels, the Expos, the Padres, so he was a bit of a journeyman as well. He was a guy that had 180 wins. Spoon loves pitcher wins. So, but even if you put that aside, like a 50 career WAR as a starting pitcher, nearly 2,500 strikeouts, a career ERA south of 4, lefty machine, 0 Cy Young love. He led the American League in strikeouts 3 times. He played forever, gave you 200 innings a year consecutively. And he was super consistent. And again, it's just that type of guy where it's like, oh yeah, Mark Langston, he had a good career. Then you go look at his numbers and you're like, why was this guy never even considered as like one of the greatest pitchers of all time? So it really, whenever you got my like wheels turning, like there was all these different areas of my brain I was going to, and it was like nostalgia going back to when I was a kid. Like all these names are sort of like 90s, 2000s guys, because there were so many of them, it seemed like around that period. It's kind of in some ways the forgotten period of baseball, because there's all these guys that had bona fide Hall of Fame careers that were on steroids and won't get into the Hall of Fame. But then there were also these other guys that were just so much fun that almost just seemed like they're not being considered for anything. So whenever you brought it up, I thought it was an interesting one out of left field to have a chat.
I'm a big name guy, as you know. What are the chances statistically of the two greatest players in a franchise's history both being like the same group of thing? Because the two best Angels players ever are both named after fish. That's crazy to me.
Tim Salmon, that was a strange call from you, Rolsey. I mean, Tim Salmon. I was not expecting those words to come out of your mouth.
MVP baseball 04. Tim Salmon was the dude.
He had a WAR of 4 and 22 home runs when the Angels won the World Series in 2002. Like he was.
Yeah, but nobody remembers
like a bit of. Does winning Rookie of the Year disqualify him, Eric? Is that a major award for you?
I don't know. I think just being named Tim Salmon disqualifies him.
Well, how is it different to Mike Trout? How is that different to Mike Trout? They are both ridiculous names. Generic white guy first name, random fish second name. That is the formula for Angels.
And played for the Angels. Like that is, you're 100% right. That is very, very strange, right? Like, yeah. Anyways,
our left field segment next week. Our left field segment next week is just going to be us. Us throwing around generic white guy first names and fish last names. So Gerald Barramundi will be our guest on Baseball Expats next week. All right, Spoon, take it away, my friend. We had so much fun with our first Destiny draft where Eric pipped me at the line, a bit like Chautauqua. I think we're keen to do it again. Let's rock and roll.
All righty, let's do this. This is the dopamine my brain much needs after a weekend of disappointment.
If Corbin Burns is one of the cards you pull, we may have to edit this part of the podcast out. Yeah, the scissors might be dangerous.
Wait, hold up, boys. The first overall pick, have we made some sort of like precedent that it goes to the person that is most down bad?
I think we have. I think that's a great call. I think Spoon gets the first pick today, and because the Cardinals
and I won the last one, I'll go 3, boys. Like I won the last one, so I think it's only right that I go last.
All right, let's do this then. I'm hoping we get some like average names this time to make things a little more interesting. I mean, I've got an eye for average names anyway, so I'm sure I'll gravitate towards those. But let's see. We got pack 1 here. Eric, do you want to jot these down? I don't know how you edit this anyway, Rolsey, but if you want to jot these down so we know what our pool is, let's do it. All right, we've got Seattle Mariners rookie Tyler Locklear. I'm not sure that guy's currently up in the bigs. Interesting one. We've got Emmanuel Clase. We talked about would you ever go a pitcher in this great game Destiny draft. Brent Rooker from the A's could be a potentially popular pick. Oh, no. Spencer Schwellenbach. He continues to haunt me with an impossible to pronounce name. I knew that was going to happen. We've got Zach DiZenzo from the Astros, another rookie. Seth Brown from the A's. We've got Nick Gordon from the Fish. Taj Bradley from the Rays. Giancarlo Stanton from the Yankees. Would be good if he wasn't injured. Kyle Harrison from the Giants. Ezekiel Tovar from the Rockies. Gunnar Henderson from the Orioles. O'Neal Cruz from the Pirates. And Hurston Waldrep from the Braves. So a bit of a mixed bag there in pack number 1. And actually a few guys that are injured, which is going to make the research component of this quite interesting with our 30-second draft clock. Going to jump straight into pack number 2. You get all those, Eric?
I think so.
All right. Pack number 2. Ooh, we got Bryce Harper to lead things off.
Ooh.
We got Adam Mazur from the Marlins. We got the Moo Man himself, Colton Cowser. I think he's currently on the IL, though. Jorge Alcala from the Twins. We have a team card, the Baltimore Orioles. They're obviously not.
You can have the entire Baltimore Orioles.
You wouldn't even want them.
You'd end up with negative. Yeah, you'd end up with negative points for the week.
We've got Gino Suarez. Probably going to leave that one just out of current emotional resentment. Freddie Freeman. That's a nice one. We got Ryan Pepio from the Rays. Alec Burleson from your Cardinals. We got Yace Young from the Tigers. We have Ken Griffey Jr. He'd belong pretty well on my team because I'm just looking for guys who don't go negative, and I can guarantee that with Junior. Carlos Correa, who's having a really good couple of weeks, might be an interesting pick. Freddie Fermin from the Royals, and your man, Eric Fetty from the Cardinals as well. So not a bad little mix there. Not a heap of ace starting pitching to choose from. So if you are going to go the pitching route, they might be quite popular early. A couple of superstar hitters as well. A little bit to think about.
Yeah, well, a pretty good collection. I mean, obviously, like some top tier guys, quite a few mid tier guys. It's probably going to be one of those where it's a 2-position player, one pitcher type of a stack. But anyways, Spoon, the man who is the most down bad of the three of the baseball expats, you are on the clock, my friend.
Alrighty. Yeah, this is a tricky one. I'm just thinking like on the fly here. I don't think we're going to get 2 starts from anyone at all. And even if whoever gets the 1 start, you really want to make it count. Limited options here, and I'm not sure. Did Schwellenbach end up like going on the IL? Was that a thing, or was that was Smith Shawver, wasn't it?
No, Schwellenbach pitched on the weekend. He was pretty good, wasn't he?
Yeah, so that was the other Braves rookie. So he's safe. Eric Fetty doesn't pitch till later in the week. I know I've got 10
pitched today,
seconds
and he was
left.
bad.
Yeah, okay. Does he normally bounce back? I don't know. That's a question for more experienced minds. I'm going to panic. I'm taking Bryce Harper. Set and forget.
I think you were going to do that regardless of what happened.
If I could have found the reason to talk myself into taking a pitcher first, like a guy was starting tomorrow and then they played every day this week, and then maybe I'd get the second start, I was probably going to do it. I couldn't find anything like that. I'm just going to take a guy that's a good chance of getting a couple of ribbies and a home run every couple of nights in Bryce Harper. So I think it's over to you now, Rob.
Yeah, look, without looking too much into it or looking into their schedule, they actually play St. Louis this weekend, and like Freddie Freeman's been hot as in his last 5 games, he's got 8 hits in his last 5 games, including 3 extra base hits. He's scoring runs for fun, and it'll be fun to, I guess, have a reason to cheer for somebody on the Dodgers whenever they go to Busch Stadium on the weekend. So I'll take Freddie Freeman.
All righty, over to you, Eric.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. I got to go pitcher here because there's not going to be one when it gets back to me because I've got back-to-back pitches here, and there's no real star here, right? Like Eric Fetty, his next start will be against the Dodgers, it looks like. So I kind of want to stay clear of that. The Tampa Bay Rays in Pepio, he's been pitching well, but I think they've got a tricky schedule coming up too. I don't know, just because he's kind of fun and I would love him just to, I don't know, shove. I'm going to go with our boy, Spencer Schwellenbach, soon to be friend of the pod, as one of my picks. And you mentioned it kind of near the top of the show. He's just been really, really hot lately and his team's been generally playing really, really well. I just got a good feeling about Carlos Correa. So I'm going to go with the Twins guy. I'm going to go with Brave and a Twins. So I'm going to go Schwellenbach and Correa.
Nice. That looks like a pretty good turn there. Over to you, Rolsey.
Yeah, well, I think that makes my second pick pretty easy. I want a reason to cheer for my man Spoon. And he hasn't been all that bad despite the string of losses. I mean, he wasn't great in the series against Pittsburgh, but he sort of bounced back against Washington. He had a hit in each of the games that the D-backs played against Washington over the weekend, so I'm going to take Gino Suarez.
Nice. I mean, imagine if you had him in your Destiny draft that game. He hit 4 home runs.
I know.
Like, what is that?
Game
I
over.
can't remember. I think they were maybe all solo shots, but that's still like just a ridiculous amount of points from one game. What's that? 12 points. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I'm now going to have to go pitcher as my somewhere here, whether I do it as my second or my third on this turn. This is a guy that I actually thought was going to take maybe a bit more of a step this year than he has. He's still sort of had some middling starts that come and go a little bit, but I don't love the matchup. At least I'm going to get something. At least he's capable of generating some strikeouts. I'm going to go Taj Bradley as my pitcher. And then This is tricky for the last one. I don't know if I want to go someone who is kind of Mr. Consistent. Like, I was looking at O'Neill Cruz. The problem is he's just got so much swing and miss. And what really killed me the other week was strikeouts. And I'm going to try and avoid those if I can. So, look, a team that should be going a lot better. Hopefully they're going to turn it around. Maybe some of that can be led by this guy. I'm going to take Gunnar Henderson as my third and final player for the utility slot.
Interesting. All right, so I need a pitcher, and I'm Integrity Pod. I'm going to need your direction on some rules. Maybe a rule change mid podcast here. The pitching scoring system is locked in as innings pitched, strikeouts, and runs allowed. No points for a save. We can't.
If we were
change
changing
that?
it, we should have changed it before the draft rather than mid draft.
All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm taking Class A.
The value of said player would change.
So even then, I'm going to say, because if he can get 3 appearances this week and have 6 or 7 strikeouts, I think if I can get somewhere, I'm really happy with Gino and Freeman. So I think if I can get somewhere between 8 to 10 points out of my pitcher and not risk, like with the thing about having a closer is I don't think there's a massive amount of risk of having a huge negative unless he goes out and gives up 3 runs and no innings pitched.
The innings pitch thing is cumulative as well, so he gets a point for every 2 innings. But yeah, if he gets 4 outings, or he gets a couple of 4-out saves or something like that, you could get those points there too.
So that's fine. I think if I can get good points out of Gino and Freddie, hopefully they both have good weeks, then really I just want to make sure I don't have a pitcher that goes out and has one horrible 3-inning outing where he gives up 7 runs and doesn't strike anybody out, because then it's just detrimental. I think Class A for the 2 offensive players that I've picked is probably a safe choice for pitchers. So I'm going to go Emmanuel Class A.
Cool. Bring it home, Eric.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a guy who's probably going to strike out a little bit, but I think I just need a guy that can kind of turn a week for me on a dime. Like if I'm behind, I want a guy, and I'm looking at a player who plays in a hitter-friendly ballpark. He's going to be there for all 7 games this week, and he's hitting 287 at home on the season. He hit a massive home run over the weekend versus the Blue Jays. It's got to be Brent Rooker. He might strike out a bit, but he's got 13 homers on the year. He's got some power numbers lately, and he's going to be in Sacramento for a week, which I kind of like.
That's fun. Like first reaction is these teams look really balanced. I think maybe because there's no like ace, right? Like when we did this last time, we were like, okay. I mean, to be fair, even then some kind of overperformed. Sonny Gray went better than I expected. But I think having to really struggle to find a pitcher here, and there were some superstar options there for like 1 hitter, but maybe not 2 hitters. So on paper, this feels quite balanced.
You just want to give us a recap of the 3 teams, Spud?
Yeah, sure. So I kicked things off. Pick number 1, I went my first round, Bryce Harper. My second round, Taj Bradley. And my third round pick was Gunnar Henderson. You were second, Rolsey. You went first off with Freddie Freeman. You then followed up with Gino Suarez. And in the interest of exploring the effectiveness of the scoring system, you're potentially going to jump on a grenade for us and take a relief pitcher. You've got the Cleveland Guardians closer in Emmanuel Class A. We'll see if that will sort of reap rewards for you or potentially backfire. Eric was our third and final selector or coach or manager. He kicked things off with Carlos Correa. He's going to make me say the name one more time. Spencer Schwellenbach then came in as his pitching slot, and Brent Rooker brought it home in the utilities. So a little bit to like over the next 7 days. I'm looking forward to some box score banditing with you boys and tuning into games that we perhaps otherwise never would.
Twins and the A's play each other, so I know which games I'll be watching.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 of us had a lot of fun, and sort of even had some chats back and forth with a couple listeners about a few of the picks, particularly whenever Sonny Gray was pitching well last time when I had him on my team. So really looking forward to our second Destiny draft. Hopefully I don't get so far out in front that I get really cocky again and then Eric chases me down, but we'll see how things go. All right, on the other side, we will get some tips from the boys. Spoon, look, he had 2 winners on weekend pickoff. The problem is the episode didn't get published. So if a tree falls in a forest, that's how bad Spoon's week's going. He gets two pod picks up, and they don't even actually make it to the masses. You could have found him on Twitter or Instagram. But yeah, it's just the way that Spoon's week's gone. We'll step aside for a moment. On the other side, the boys will give us their best of the week. Time for some tips now on Baseball Expats. Has talked about Spoon is red hot with his pod picks, but you wouldn't know it because the episode didn't get published last week. But Spoon, we need to lift your spirits. So what have you got for us that can lift yours and the listeners' spirits this week?
Yeah, I mean, unofficially on a 3-pick streak, but if you even remove the 2 in question and in the name of integrity, it was still nice to get one in the back half of last week at a plus price. So I'm going with a guy that I've had a little bit of faith in already, and we actually had him in that Combo K play last week. I love the matchup for Jack Flaherty on the road tomorrow against the White Sox. Looking at the player performance doubles market, get Jack Flaherty for 7 strikeouts and the Tigers to win at 3-1, and I think that's just such a great spot to play. The White Sox are striking out more and more. They're playing some decent baseball. They're kind of okay to watch, but the Tigers have won their division last year and will look to win the division this year by winning these divisional games. So I think they go and take care of business behind a guy who has been their clear number 2. 7 strikeouts, Tigers win 3-1. I'm not going to overthink that one tomorrow. I think that's a great way to go. And given this is already rock bottom for me and the D-backs and all I've talked about, Zach Gallen and his potential fraud watch, I'm actually going to take him on Wednesday. I joked about with you guys a couple of weeks ago, he had this weird quote saying like the sea elevation on the East Coast is lower and his braking stuff works way better when he's there. Awesome. Go and prove it for me on Wednesday, buddy. You head to Atlanta to take on the Braves up against Spencer Strider. He typically does dial in better when he's in these pitching duels. He's been getting torched lately when he's going up against sub great starters against the Cardinals and the Rockies. Let's see what he can do against the Braves when Strider's up there, throwing 100 past our guys. And if his breaking stuff does work better in the East Coast, like he's so sure is the reason for his shortcomings this year, that would be great. I think we're going to get a line at 5.5, given how badly Gallen has been lately. And if it's 5.5, that's going to be a very nice bet for me. I will take 6.5 if that's what I need to get over on the line. They're my 2 plays. Any thoughts? And what do you boys have?
Yeah, I like the Tigers one. I was actually kind of lurking around Flaherty as well. He's been pitching really, really well. And the White Sox are bad. So like that was kind of like an instant trigger. I always like to look at good teams versus bad teams and kind of see what kind of value might be in there. So I'm really on board with that. And Gallen, I mean, his track record's not great, man, but like, let's just try to run him into the ground. He's due, right? The Eric Ballnar avalanche method. Yeah, Gallen's got to hit at some point.
The Brian Snitka, like some magic's going to be coming. Like that's all we're doing now. No analytics. Yeah.
So I've got 2 for you. The first one I want to look at is the Marlins game. They're playing the Rockies. By the way, the Colorado Rockies, if they go 500 the rest of the season, they will lose 101 games. Just a fun little Rockies sad fact for you. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is a double as well. So I'm going Marlins, but on the run line. So a 1.5 minus 1.5 and Max Meyer over 17.5 outs. It's going to come in around 4s when I was checking earlier. The Rockies entered Sunday with 38 of their first 58 games being by losses by more than 1 run, which is crazy, right? Like they played 58 games and they've lost 38 of them by 2+. So that data suggests pretty good. Marquez is going to be on the mound. He's got a 7.13 ERA and he walks 3.5 per 9 innings. And the Rockies lineup just aren't hitting. Yeah, Max Meyer, he's going up and down. But how about this? Over only 6 times in their last 30 games, the Rockies has a pitcher not gone 6 innings. In their last 30 games, 24 times a pitcher has gone 6 innings. So I think it stands to reason that if the Marlins have a bit of a lead, it's a nice little reset day after a busy weekend where they can just run a guy out there. So I like those 2 angles. And my other one is an avalanche. I love an avalanche. And this one, why not look at the team with one of the biggest winning streaks in the MLB, the Toronto Blue Jays? They've won 5 in a row. They are at home but they're playing the Philadelphia Phillies, who have lost 4 in a row, and the Phillies are 36-23. The Phillies ain't losing 7 in a row. Now, I am a little worried about sort of the value in that a bit later on, but the Jays hot at home. The lines aren't out quite yet. I do think that it's going to be better than normal odds. I think sometimes you might have the Phillies as slight road favorites versus the Jays. I think they might be a bit more close to even money. I don't know what you think, Spoon, in terms of just the way the Jays are going and the Phillies are going. And they're a road team. So I kind of think this could be a potential, if they especially hit it in one of those first 2 games, it could be some value in the Avalanche.
Yeah, I think you're going to see Philly's favorite with Zach Wheeler on the mound against Francis for sure, game 1. But it'll be interesting game 2, Sanchez versus Barrios. Like, I think that's where you might get that Phillies at 2-1. And if the Jays win that first one, then yeah, all of a sudden you might be getting plus money about the Phillies who's probably been as good as Wheeler all year on the mound in Sanchez. And that's where you might want to hit on game 2.
And with Wheeler, too, I don't think you're going to get like $1.60 odds as the road favorites, right? They've lost 4 in a row. I think it's going to be a little tighter to that maybe $1.78 to 83 kind of range, like if they are favorites. So I don't think it's going to be ridiculous. So that's what I'm looking at this weekend or this week.
Yeah. No, I like it. I just saw, is that Abel pitching for Phillies? That could be anything on Friday.
Mick Abel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been one of their...
One start, right? Yeah.
Mick Abel's been one of their best minor leaguers for a number of years now. I've actually watched that Phillies minor league system intently because they send players over to Adelaide to play with the Giants. And a good friend of mine works for the Philadelphia Phillies in the AAA system. So I know a lot of these Phillies minor leaguers. Mick Abel's a good pitcher, man.
Yeah, well, then you might end up, if you're still chasing the Avalanche day 3 and Bassett's on the mound for Toronto, you might get a really nice price by then because it's kind of an underrated rookie coming up and making his second start. So yeah, it can be a bit of fun to watch.
Mick Abel had like 9 strikeouts in 6 innings in his first, and he didn't allow a run in his first start in the big leagues. Like, he's legit, man.
Yeah, that'll be good to watch.
So a couple of picks there for each of the boys will be on Jack Flaherty and Zach Gallen watch for Spoon. The Marlins and the Meyer pick is quite interesting. The run line and the over 17.5. That would be an interesting watch. And then Eric doing the unthinkable and avalanching against his own team, avalanching the Phillies against Toronto at home. Don't forget, you can follow Spoon and all of his picks throughout the week, including the ones that you just heard on X at Spoon Does Baseball. Follow him on Instagram as well. You can catch us at Baseball Expats on both of those platforms. And don't forget some of our longer form interviews on YouTube, including the one we did with Tyler Mon last week. Much like Spoon lamenting about the Arizona Diamondbacks in this episode, that was like 40 minutes of Tyler pondering why the Rockies even exist in general. It was a fun chat with Tyler, and we'll certainly have him back on the podcast to talk more international baseball stuff in the next couple of months. And I promise you, we will be back. I promise you, we will be back on air with the weekend pickoff this Friday. It'll happen. But until then, certainly enjoy your week. Enjoy your baseball. See you, everybody.